Some promises are not yours to make. She was promised to a king before she was old enough to understand what kings cost. He was sent to prepare her for another man. He was not prepared for her. 8 years. Every morning, every silence. He memorized her and said nothing. Then came the night she saw the truth. And the truth was not him.
I couldn't say a word. I'm loyal to the king.
She was promised to a king. She chose the man who actually saw her.
I smell him before I see her. That's the thing about having a wolf's nose. You don't get the mercy of not knowing. You don't get the comfortable human luxury of suspicion. You get certainty, delivered without warning, wrapped in the scent of pine resin and her perfume and his skin, all braided together in the cold night air like a confession nobody meant to make out loud. I stop walking. The eastern ridge spreads out before me, silver-washed under the blood moon, the trees standing like sentinels who've seen too much and long ago decided to say nothing. The wind comes from the north. It carries everything. It carries them. I step into the shadow of the tree lean and I see him. Roland. Alpha King Roland of the Ironwood Pack, the man I have been promised to since I was 7 years old and still believed promises meant something, is standing 20 feet away in the blood-red moonlight with his hand curved around another woman's face. And the way he is touching her. That is what breaks me. Not the betrayal. Not the politics of it. Not the 17 years of a contract written in my father's blood and Roland's father's indifference. It is the tenderness of it. The way his thumb moves across her cheekbone like he is memorizing something he is terrified to lose. The way he is looking at her soft, unguarded, present, in a way he has never once looked at me. I have never once seen Roland present. I did not know he was capable of it. My chest does not crack open. My eyes do not fill. My wolf does not surface and howl at the injustice of it the way I always imagined she would if something like this ever happened. Instead, something goes very quiet inside me, the way a fire goes quiet when it finally finds enough oxygen to stop flickering and simply burn. I turn around. I walk back to the pack house. I do not run. Now I know what you're thinking. What does she do? What does Cashin do? Does she burn the whole mating ceremony to the ground? I want to tell you to stay. Because what happens next, what Cashin does, what Roland tries to do, what I choose on the night of the blood ceremony, it will wreck you in the best possible way. If you want to know whether I survive the Alpha's wrath, whether the girl who is promised to a king finds the courage to choose the man who actually sees her, then like this story, subscribe to the library and stay with me. Because I am just getting started. Chapter 1. The Frost Beneath the Fire. Cashin is on the steps when I return. Of course he is. In 8 years, I have never once managed to slip past this man's awareness. I used to think it was because he was Roland's enforcer, hypervigilant by profession, suspicious by design. I understand now, with the clarity that only catastrophe provides, that it was never professional. He is sitting on the top step with his forearms on his knees, hands loosely clasped, head slightly bowed, the posture of a man who has been waiting long enough to stop pretending he wasn't. When he hears my footsteps on the gravel, he lifts his head, and the look on his face in the 3 seconds before he locks it down. I have to look away, because that look is a mirror, and I am not ready to see what's in it. Alara, don't. My voice comes out steady, steadier than I feel. Something about that steadiness frightens me, The way a frozen river looks peaceful from above and will drop you through the ice without warning if you trust it. He stands up. Slowly, deliberately, the way he moves when he's managing something enormous inside himself, treating his own body like a weapon he needs to be careful with. "I've known," he says. And those two words, "I've known," split open like they've been under pressure for months. Like they've been waiting, coiled, for permission to exist. About her. About them. I've known for months. I should be angry at him. I am building toward it. I can feel the architecture of the anger going up inside me, brick by methodical brick. But there is something in his voice that makes the bricks keep falling. Something that sounds less like a confession and more like a wound. "I couldn't tell you," he continues, without betraying him. Without being the man who brings down what our packs have been building for 17 years. And he stops. Swallows. The muscle in his jaw moves. I chose wrong. I know I chose wrong. I look at him. Really look at him. 8 years of mornings, gray and honest before the rest of the world woke up. 8 years of start again and better and lead with your left. 8 years of a man who cataloged my silences the way other men catalog victories, carefully, reverently, like they meant something worth keeping. "You knew," I say. "Yes." "And you stayed." "Yes." His eyes don't move from mine. Storm-colored eyes, the kind that don't decide between gray and blue because they've never needed to, because leaving would have meant leaving you. And something enormous collapses in his chest. I hear it in the exhale. I am not capable of that. The blood moon hangs behind him like a witness that showed up uninvited and refuses to leave. I think about 7-year-old me watching two fathers sign my future away in firelight. I think about the typed note with the official seal that I used as a bookmark because some part of me had always known it was just paper. I cross the steps between us. I take his face in both hands, these hands he spent 8 years teaching not to apologize, and I feel him go perfectly, absolutely still beneath my palms. Like something that has been braced for impact for so long it has forgotten what it feels like to simply be touched. Cashin. My voice is different now. Not the frozen river voice. The fire voice. The one that has been waiting quietly under the ice. I need you to tell me something true. His hands come up slowly and cover mine. His palms are warm. They have always been warm. Anything, he says. And the way he says it, like it is not a figure of speech, like it is a covenant, breaks what was left of my careful composure into something I don't have a word for. Something that feels terrifyingly like relief. Did he ever see me? I ask. Did Roland ever, even once, see me the way you? No. No hesitation. No diplomatic softening. Just the clean, certain syllable of a man who has never once lied to me and will not start now. No, he did not. I close my eyes. The blood moon burns red through my eyelids. The ceremony is in 3 weeks, I say. I know. I have a better idea. His hands tighten over mine. Just slightly. Just enough to tell me that whatever the idea is, whatever it costs, wherever it leads, he is already in. Chapter 2. The Architecture of Devotion. Let me tell you about the 8 years, because you need to understand them to understand what comes next. Cashin arrived at Ashvinpak when I was 16 and he was 22, dispatched by Roland as a political courtesy, the alpha equivalent of sending a very expensive, very intimidating fruit basket. He was Roland's beta, his enforcer, the second most powerful wolf in the Ironwood hierarchy. He was supposed to monitor the alliance. Train me, perhaps, well enough that I wouldn't embarrass Roland's pack when I arrived as his mate. He was, in other words, sent to prepare me for another man. The universe has a genuinely depraved sense of humor. Our first training session was at dawn on a Tuesday. Of course it was a Tuesday. All life-altering things in my experience happen on Tuesdays, and he watched me go through my fighting stances with the expression of a professor reviewing an undergraduate's first essay. Patient. Clinical. Quietly horrified. You move like you're apologizing for existing, he said finally. I threw a punch at his jaw. Missed by approximately 1.5 feet, which is arguably worse than not throwing it at all. He looked at my fist, then at my face. Something shifted in his expression, something small and quickly suppressed, but I saw it. I have always been very good at seeing the things people try to hide. Ironic, in retrospect. Better, he said. One word. 2 syllables. And somehow, it settled into my chest like something I had been hungry for without knowing I was hungry. I came back the next morning. And the one after. And the one after that. He noticed everything. That I pulled my punches when I was tired. That I was faster when I was angry. That I needed silence to process bad news, but movement to process fear. So after delivering difficult training feedback, he would always set me running before I could spiral into stillness. That my left cross was stronger than my right, and I should always lead with it. He did not volunteer this information all at once, because Cashin does not perform his intelligence. He deposits it quietly, precisely, when it is needed. Like a man who has been saving things up. Roland sent a formal communication during our 3rd year. It informed me, through his personal secretary, the audacity was genuinely architectural, that he was pleased to hear of my progress and looked forward to the upcoming union. It was addressed to my father, copied to me, formatted with official ironwood pack letterhead, and signed with Roland's title rather than his name. I used it as a bookmark in a novel about a woman who fakes her own death to escape a bad marriage, which felt, in retrospect, like my subconscious taking notes. Cashin found it there once, during one of his rare evenings in the pack library. He picked up the novel, saw the bookmark, and set it back down without saying a single word. But the next morning at training, he worked me twice as hard, and at the end of it he said, completely unprompted, staring at the middle distance, "You're one of the strongest fighters I've ever trained." And I've trained a lot of wolves who thought they were important. It was, I understood later, the closest he could come to saying, "You deserve better than a typed letter with a footer." Roland visited in our 5th year. 3 days. He was handsome the way monuments are handsome, impressive at a distance, cold up close, giving nothing back when you look at them. He assessed every room he entered for its political value and found most of them wanting. He looked at me the way a king looks at a chess piece, not with cruelty, which would at least have been engagement, but with the flat, efficient indifference of a man checking something off a list. He shook my father's hand when he left. He did not shake mine. He sent the typed note 2 days later. I remember standing in the courtyard watching his convoy leave, thinking, 17 more years of this. 40 more years. 60. The arithmetic of it was genuinely staggering. I remember turning around and finding Cashin watching Roland's vehicles disappear around the tree line. His jaw was set in that way it gets when he's gripping something inside himself, holding it down through sheer discipline. His hands were absolutely still at his sides, which is how I know he's working hard at something, because Cashin's hands are only ever absolutely still when the rest of him is fighting. He never said a word against Roland. Not once in 8 years. His loyalty was ironclad, ferocious in its completeness, the loyalty of a man who has decided what he believes in and will not be argued out of it by something as inconvenient as his own feelings. But he trained me harder after Roland left. And sometimes, at the end of a long run, when we were both breathing hard and the world was still gray and honest before the rest of it woke up, I would catch him watching me with an expression that had nothing to do with training. An expression that was careful and enormous and very, very controlled. I always looked away first. I think we both knew why. 3 nights after the ridge. After the blood moon. After I've known and I am not capable of leaving you. We are sitting by the fire in the pack library and Cashin is telling me things he has never said out loud, and I am listening with my whole body because I understand that this is the kind of conversation that only happens once, that the door to it only opens for a moment, and that what you say or don't say inside it becomes the thing you carry for the rest of your life. The first time I knew, he says, staring into the fire, was the morning after Roland's first visit. You came to training and you were not sad. Something harder than sad. Like you'd made peace with something that shouldn't require peacemaking. He pauses. And I stood there thinking about the look on your face, and I realized I would do genuinely unreasonable things to make sure you never had to make that face again. I look at his profile in the firelight. The sharp line of his jaw. The way the orange light finds the angles of him. Unreasonable things, I repeat. Like what? He turns to look at me, and the firelight catches his eyes, and they are storm-colored and certain and terrifyingly gentle all at once. Like, stay, he says. For 8 years. In a position that required me to watch the woman he stops. Recalibrates. In a position that required considerable personal discipline. I laugh. It surprises both of us, a real laugh, not a polite one, rising up from somewhere that has needed to breathe for a very long time. Considerable personal discipline, I say. Cashin. You are the most emotionally understated person I have ever met. That is the most romantic thing I have ever heard, which is honestly a very low bar that you have somehow cleared anyway. The corner of his mouth moves. That rare, quiet shift that is the closest he gets to a smile in any conventional sense, Cashin's version of throwing a parade. I have been told I express things efficiently, he says. You have been told incorrectly. The almost smile becomes slightly more. His hand, resting on the arm of the chair between us, moves carefully, with full awareness of what it's doing, and covers mine. The fire crackles. Neither of us speaks. Neither of us moves our hands. What happens, he says finally, quietly, at the ceremony. I look at our hands. His covering mine the same way they did on the steps, like something being protected, not possessed. Like he is trying to keep something warm. Roland has a choice to make, I say. And so do I. And if Roland does not make the right one, I lift my eyes to his. Then I make mine without him. Something moves through his face, relief and fear, and something I don't have a clean word for, something that lives in the space between hope and dread. His hand tightens over mine. You understand what it would mean, he says. The alliance. Your pack's position. He stops. My loyalty to him. I understand. Alara. My name in his voice, said like that, low and careful and with every wall between us briefly, completely gone. I would follow you into whatever comes after this. I need you to know that. Not as a beta. Not as an enforcer. As he exhales. As the man who has been in love with you for 8 years and has run out of good reasons to pretend otherwise. Outside, a wolf howls somewhere deep in the aspen forest. The sound rises and falls and hangs in the cold air like a question. I lean forward and press my lips to the corner of his jaw softly, barely, like a beginning rather than an answer. His entire body goes still. Completely, utterly still. And then his free hand comes up and curves around the back of my neck, and his forehead comes to rest against my temple, and we stay like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, both of us understanding that something has been decided. 3 weeks, I murmur. 3 weeks, he agrees. Neither of us sounds afraid. We are both absolutely terrified. Chapter 3. The Ceremony, the Coup, and the Choice. The mating ceremony of the Ironwood Pack is not subtle. It is, in the tradition of all Wolfpack political theater, extremely committed to the bit. Torches in a ring of fire. Both packs assembled on the ceremonial grounds, Ironwood on the east side, Ashfin on the west, organized by rank, arrayed like chess pieces on a board that someone else designed. Drums that you feel in your sternum before you hear them with your ears. I am dressed in white, which I find darkly amusing. The symbolism is, let's say, aspirational. I walk the procession path between my pack's assembled wolves, and I do not look at anyone until I reach the front. My father stands at the edge of the Ashfin contingent, proud and complicated and slightly guilty, which is the correct mixture of emotions for a man who sold his daughter's future for political stability before she was old enough to have opinions about it. I give him a small nod. He did what he thought was right. I understand that now, even if I have not entirely forgiven it. Then I look to the altar. Roland is there. And next to Roland, standing 1 step to his right and 1 step behind, in the position of second in command that he has occupied for a decade, is Cashin. He is looking at me. He has been looking at me, I suspect, since I appeared at the top of the procession path. His face is the controlled, neutral mask he wears in public, the one that gives nothing away to anyone who doesn't know how to read it. But I know how to read it. I have spent 8 years learning the language of every minor shift in his expression, the same way he spent 8 years learning the language of my silences. He is afraid for me. He is proud of me. He is completely, absolutely in this with me. I reach the altar. The ceremony elder begins the ritual words, ancient language, Varath Pact tradition, the formal invocation of blood oaths and moon bonds that sounds, if I'm honest, like someone transcribed a very serious legal contract into old high dramatic. Roland stands before me. He is handsome and cold and present in the way he is always present, like a man attending a business meeting he expects to go according to plan. He has not heard yet. About the ridge. About my walk home under the blood moon. About the 3 weeks of conversations in the library firelight and the decision that was made in them. He is about to. The elder reaches the moment in the ceremony where both parties are invited to speak their intention. Roland goes first, because of course he does. Alpha privilege is nothing if not consistent. He opens his mouth. And I say, clearly, into the assembled silence of 400 wolves, I need to speak first. The drums stop. I want to be very clear about how unusual this is. No one speaks over the ceremony elder. No one interrupts the intention moment. It simply is not done. I can feel the collective intake of breath from both pack contingents, 400 wolves all performing the same shocked inhale simultaneously, which produces a sound not unlike a very large, very scandalized ghost. Roland's eyes come to mine. Something flickers in them, not anger yet. Surprise. He did not anticipate this. Good. Cashin once told me that the element of surprise is worth 3 skilled fighters. I intend to spend it wisely. Roland, I say. My voice carries easily, pack acoustics and a decade of training my body to project, to not apologize for existing. I was on the Eastern Ridge 3 weeks ago. On the night of the blood moon. Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. Roland goes very still. He is an alpha king. His control is extraordinary. But I am watching for the thing beneath the control, and I see it, a fractional tightening around his eyes. The recognition of where this is going. I saw you, I continue. I saw her. I saw the way you looked at her, and I understood something I had perhaps always known but needed to see to believe. I pause. You don't love me, Roland. You never did. You love your alliance. You love your political architecture. And I gesture, gently, toward the southern pack contingent on the far edge of the grounds, where a highborn woman in green has gone absolutely rigid. I believe, you actually love. The silence has evolved. It is no longer just silent. It is the silence that happens when 400 wolves are all separately calculating the same political earthquake, and none of them know yet which way the ground is going to move. Roland's jaw is set. His eyes are dangerous. He is an alpha king, and I am an omega, and I am standing at his ceremony altar calling out his secrets in front of both his packs, and everything in his posture says this is not something he intended to allow. Alara. His voice is low, controlled, and carries exactly the right frequency of authority to make lesser wolves step back instinctively. This is not the place. It's exactly the place. I hold his gaze. Because if we complete this ceremony, neither of us can undo it. And I will not bind myself to a man who has given his heart to someone else and offers me a contract instead. I respect you too much for that. I pause. And you should respect me at least enough to admit that you are relieved. Something extraordinary happens on Roland's face. He blinks. And the authority in his expression, the Alpha King architecture of controlled power, shifts. Just slightly. Just enough to show me, for a fraction of a second, the man underneath. The one who has been navigating a contract he didn't design any more than I did. Who has also, perhaps, been surviving something he didn't choose. I am not, he begins. Roland. My voice drops, just between us, though I know every wolf on these grounds can hear it. You pressed your thumb to her cheekbone like you were memorizing her. Don't. He closes his mouth. The silence stretches. And then, I will not lie to you, this is not something I expected. Roland laughs. Brief. Low. The laugh of a man who has been caught comprehensively and has enough dignity to acknowledge it. You have, he says quietly, always been more formidable than I gave you credit for. I know, I say. Your beta told me. Roland's gaze moves slowly, with great precision, to Cashin. And here is where I need to tell you about what Cashin does, because I have been watching him in my peripheral vision since I first opened my mouth, and I have observed the following. He has not moved. He has not stepped back or forward or attempted to disappear into the crowd the way a man might if he were trying to avoid the fallout of a political explosion. He is standing in his position, one step to Roland's right, perfectly still, with his eyes on me and his hands loose at his sides and his face showing the exact expression I have come to understand means I am completely in this, and I am not afraid. Roland looks at him for a long moment. Something passes between them, the complicated, wordless communication of men who have been brothers in arms for a decade, who have bled together and built something together, and now find themselves on either side of a choice that cannot be unmade. How long, Roland says. Not an accusation. Almost, a genuine question. 8 years, Cashin says. And he does not look away from Roland, and he does not apologize, and I think this is what real loyalty looks like, not the kind that conceals everything, but the kind that can stand in the open and tell the truth. Roland is quiet for a very long time. The torches burn. The 400 wolves on these grounds have collectively stopped breathing. And then Roland does something I will remember for the rest of my life. He turns to the ceremony elder and says, in his full Alpha King voice, formal and absolute, the ceremony is suspended by mutual consent of both parties. The Ashfin Ironwood Alliance will be renegotiated through proper treaty, independent of this arrangement. He turns back to me. He extends his hand, not the hand of a mate, not the hand of a king to a subordinate. A hand between equals. I take it. The alliance can survive without a sacrifice, I say. Perhaps, he says, it will be stronger for not being built on one. Then he releases my hand, steps back, turns his gaze briefly and meaningfully to Cashin, a look I cannot entirely read, but which Cashin receives with a single nod that seems to settle something between them, and he walks back to his contingent. He walks, I notice, toward the edge of the grounds where the woman in green is standing. Good. The grounds are chaos. The beautiful, productive kind of chaos, 400 wolves talking simultaneously, pack elders gesticulating at each other, my father looking like a man processing a very complex tax return while standing up. Several of the younger Ironwood wolves are visibly delighted by the drama and are doing a very poor job of hiding it. I stand at the altar, alone, and I breathe. And then I am not alone. He comes to stand beside me, not in front of me, not behind me, beside me. Shoulder to shoulder. The way we run at dawn. The way we always eventually end up. Well, Cashin says. Don't. I wasn't going to say anything negative. I know. I just need a moment before you say something understated and devastating. He is quiet beside me. The torches pop and flare. Somewhere in the crowd, 2 pack elders are having what appears to be a heated debate about procedural precedent, which is both deeply inappropriate and extremely funny, and I make a mental note to think about it later when I need to laugh. Alara. His voice low. Just mine. Cashin. What happens now? I turn to look at him. The torchlight finds him the way it always does, like it knows where the important things are. He is looking at me with those storm-colored eyes and that face that is open, right now, in a way that I know almost no one ever gets to see, and I think about 8 years of mornings and better and lead with your left, and I am not capable of not loving you. I think about a 7-year-old girl standing next to a fire that burned blue, watching her father make a promise that was never hers to keep. I think about how different it feels to make one of your own. Now, I say, you take a step toward me, and you do it because you want to. Not because you are sent. Not because of an alliance or a contract or a king's instructions. He looks at me for a long moment. Then he steps forward. 1 step. The ground doesn't shake. The moon doesn't flare. No mystical force announces itself with dramatic orchestral accompaniment. It is just a man who has been in love with a woman for 8 years, taking 1 step toward her in a torchlit courtyard in front of 400 very interested wolves. And that quiet, deliberate, freely chosen step is the most powerful thing I have ever witnessed. I meet him halfway. His hands come to my face the way his hands always move, carefully, completely, like they know what they're doing and have considered the consequences. His forehead comes to mine. We are breathing the same air again, but it is different now. It is not 3 weeks before a ceremony that belongs to someone else's plan. It is the first breath of something that belongs entirely to us. You threw your punch, he says softly. First session. 16 years old. Missed by a mile. I missed on purpose, I say. I didn't want to actually hit you. He pulls back just far enough to look at my face. Something shifts in his expression, that rare, enormous, carefully guarded thing that is his version of joy. You absolutely did not miss on purpose. Your form was atrocious. My form was developing. Your form was an apology with a fist attached. I laugh. He smiles, the real one, the one I have seen exactly 7 times in 8 years, the one that changes the entire geometry of his face. I decide, standing here in the ruins of a ceremony that was never mine and the beginning of a life that is, that I intend to collect those smiles with the same dedication he has always applied to cataloging my silences. Cashin, I say. Take me home. He looks at me with those storm eyes. Which home? I think about it. The Ashvin Pack house where I was raised. The Ironwood lands where I was supposed to go. The world that is about to be louder and more complicated than either of us is fully prepared for. Yours, I say. If it's mine too, now. His arms come around me, not dramatically, not with the flourish of a man making a statement for an audience. Quietly. Completely. The way he does everything that matters. It has been yours, he says against my hair, for 8 years. Outside, the wolves of 2 packs are still arguing about procedural precedent. Roland, I can see past Cashin's shoulder, has reached the woman in green and is doing something with his expression that I have never once seen on his face before. He is smiling. I suppose we are all, in the end, getting what we actually needed. The blood moon burns overhead, slow and red and patient, like a witness who knew all along how this would go and decided to show up anyway. Some promises are made in blood. Some are broken by it. And some, the ones that last, are made freely in torchlight, one step at a time. And that, beloved listener, is where Alara's promise story ends and her real one begins. If this tale found you tonight, if you felt Cashin's 8 years of quiet devotion and Alara's long, hard walk toward herself, then you know exactly what to do. Like this story. Subscribe to the library. Leave a comment telling me which moment broke you first, the I've known, or the step. Because there are more wolves in these woods. More bonds being forged and broken and reforged in the spaces between duty and desire. And I will be here, every time, with a new tale and a fire and a story that knows exactly where to hit. Stay, beloved. The moon isn't done with us yet.